Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to be talking about rounding whole numbers. So let's check it out. Let's take a look at this guy right here. If we were using a number line and we were looking at the digits between 0 and 10, right? There's a little poem that I like to remember. It has lots of variations, but it goes something like this: 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. So we know that any value smaller than 5 is going to round down, meaning the number, your target digit, will stay the same. Any value 5 or higher will round up to the next number. So let's check it out. Would 43 round down to 40 or up to 50? Well, if we were rounding here to the nearest 10, I'm going to take a look at that 3, right? And then I'm going to say my poem. 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. Since it's less than 5, we are going to keep that 4 as a 4, and this 3 becomes a 0. So we're going to round down technically to 40. Let's try another example. Let's round 426 to the nearest 10. So the first thing we're going to do is locate the tens place. So we have a 2 in the tens place, and we're going to look to the right. We have a 6. We're going to say our poem. 4 or below, let it go. 5 or above, give it a shove. And it's a 6. So we're going to change that target digit, the 2, into a 3. We're giving it a shove, 1 up. And so our answer would be 430. So that's what we're going to be talking all about today. And the first thing that we're going to do is take some notes. So please take out your math notebook. You're going to be opening up to whatever your next blank page is in your math notebook, and get out your pencils, your pens, any nice colors that you have, and get ready to take some notes. All right. So I'm going to give my note page a title, and since we're working on rounding numbers, that's going to be my title. Rounding whole. And since I don't have much room, I'm going to make the hashtag sign, which also means number. Rounding whole numbers. And today's date is 10/5, and I'm ready to go. Remember, whenever we're taking notes in class, you want to try your hardest to make your notes look as similar to mine as possible. Of course, you don't have to use the same colors and all of that, but you want to try to write everything that I write, and to also kind of space it out as I'm doing it on the paper so that we kind of don't run out of room. All right, so there's some rules for rounding, just as there are for everything. And the very first rule, and it's perhaps one of the most important, is that you need to first find out what you're rounding to. So the first rule is ask, what place am I rounding to? What place am I rounding to? Very important. Now, if they don't tell you what place they want you to round to, you can just kind of take the easy route and round to the greatest place value. It will be the most simple method. All right, so once you know what place you're rounding to, the second step, number 2, is to find that place in the number that you're given and then look to the right. So we want to find that place and look. I'm going to make that guy like actually looking to the right. Okay. Now, when you're finding that place, right? Whatever the digit you're rounding to, you're finding that place. I like to call whatever digit is in that place the target digit. One of my favorite stores is Target. The target digit. Because that's the digit that we're going to actually be doing something to, right? Either we're going to be changing it to round up, or we're going to be letting it stay the same to round down. So that digit is really important, and I like to call it the target digit. The third thing that we're going to do, our third rule, after we look to the right and see the number that is next door to our target digit, we're going to say our poem. Now, like I said before, there's lots of variations on this poem, but the one that I tend to use most often goes like this. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, give it a rest. That's my favorite. Maybe you know another poem. Stand out. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, give it a rest. And then finally, after we say the poem, then we can actually do what they're telling us to do, right? So we actually will do it. We either add 1 more or we give it a rest. And then all the digits after your target digit become zeros. Remember, boys and girls, if you can't keep up with me taking notes, that's okay. You can pause the video anytime and catch up. So all the digits after your target digit become 0. And anything before your target digit would stay the same. So let's do a little example. I have a tiny bit of room left on my paper, and I think I'm going to write a number. Let's see. Let me write this number. 2,983. It's a good number. Now, the first thing you want to ask, remember from up top, is what place am I rounding to? So I'm going to tell you, I would like you to round to the nearest 1,000. That's our greatest place value. That's the easiest one to do. So what do we need to do? Let's follow our rules. First, I know what place I'm rounding to. I already said it, the nearest 1,000. Now I want to find that place. Where is it? Here it is. The 2 is in my thousands place. This is my target digit. Now, some people underline it. Some people circle it. It doesn't matter. As long as you know that this is your target digit. Now, I'm going to, what does it say to do next? Look to the right. Okay. So I have my target digit, and you're going to find out, I'm a fan of arrows. Just love drawing arrows. So I like to draw the Amazon arrow right there from A to Z. You're going from your target digit to the digit to the right, which happens to be Mr. 9. And then you're going to say the poem. 5 or more. We're looking at the digit to the right. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, give it a rest. So my digit happens to be a 9. That's definitely more than 5, right? So now that tells me what I have to do to my target digit. I have to add 1 more to my target digit, the number 2. So my 2 becomes a 3, and everything else after my target digit poof, 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 magically become 0. 1, 2, 3. So if I'm rounding 2,983 to the nearest 1,000, it's going to round to 3,000. Now, a common mistake that people make, and I see this all the time, is that kids are doing a great job of rounding, but when they get to the part where they say the poem, and they do a great job saying the poem, but then instead of doing the either add more or give it a rest to the target digit, the number 2, they actually change this digit, right? The digit to the right. And that is not correct, right? We're not changing that 9. The 9 is actually just telling us what to do to this target digit, Mr. 2 over here. All right, let's try some more example problems. We're actually going to take another full page of notes. Here we go. I'm going to turn your page over, get a nice new blank page. We're just going to do some samples. So the first problem I'm going to set up, I'm going to write kind of big here. I'm doing 37,892. And I want to round this number. Let's see, what place value do I want to round to? I'm going to say the nearest 1,000. Why not? Okay. So if I round this to the nearest 1,000, following my rules that we just went over, first we have to find the place that I'm rounding to. So I have my ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. All right. So this is my target digit. Again, some people like to circle it, some people underline it, do whatever makes you happy. And now I'm going to look to the right. And now I'm going to say my poem. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, give it a rest. This is an 8, so it's definitely 5 or more. It's an 8. So now it tells me what to do to my target digit, Mr. 7. What am I going to do? I'm going to add 1 more. So my 7 becomes an 8. Anything after my target digit turns into a 0. So 1, 2, 3. And anything before my target digit just stays the same. I still have a 3 in that spot. So if I'm rounding this number to the nearest 1,000, I would get 38,000. Let's try another example. Let's do 263,450. All right. So first step, ask yourself, what am I rounding to? And I'm going to tell you to please round to the nearest 10,000. Why not? All right, so if we're going to round to the nearest 10,000, the first thing we want to do is find that spot. So we have our ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s. There it is. And that's my target digit, Mr. 6. Now I'm going to look to the right. I see a 3. I'm going to say my poem. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, give it a rest. So it's a 3. So it's 4 or less. So I'm going to then give my number 6 a rest. He can stay just as he is. Just keep sleeping, Mr. 6. So my 2 stays the same. My 6 is taking a rest, so he stays the same too. And then everything after our target digit turns into a 0. Rounding this number to 260,000. I think I have room for one more example problem. Let's do this one. 455,384. Let's do that. Okay, so first thing you want to ask yourself is, what am I rounding to? And I would like you to please round to the nearest 1,000. We'll do 1,000. Okay. So first step, I want to find the place that I'm rounding to. This is my target digit. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. So this is my target digit. And I want to look to the right, and then I'm going to say my poem. 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, give it a rest. So it's a 3. So that means that I'm going to give my target digit a rest. It's just going to stay the same. So everything in front of my target digit stays the same as well, giving me 4, 5, 5. And then everything after my target digit turns into a 0. So 455,384 would round to 455,000 if I was asked to round to the nearest 1,000. All right, boys and girls, those are our notes for the day. I hope that you were able to get them copied down. Remember, if you didn't get them copied down, just pause the video, rewind, go back. That should help you because notebooks are very important. To keep a good notebook, it's really great thing to help you study. All right, we are going to now move on to our workbook page. So I'd like everybody to take out your math workbook. If you need to pause the video and go and find it, that's fine. We are going to be working on workbook page 25. In fact, your very first assignment today is, we're going to start it together, but then you're going to finish workbook page 25, front and back. So really it's page 25 and the back, which is 26. Your homework tonight happens to be the math homework and practice workbook page 27 and 28. All right, so we should all be on page 25. Let's take a look. It says, explain how to round a number when 7 is the digit to the right of the rounding place. So if 7 is the digit to the right, remember that poem, 5 or more, add 1 more. I'm going to just write, you would add 1 to your target digit. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. A city's population is 421,906. Round 421,906 to the nearest 100. To the nearest 100,000. And, they have 2 things. And to the nearest 1,000. All right, we got this. All right. So if I am going to, I just want to rewrite the number, 421,906. If I'm rounding this to the nearest 100,000, right, first I want to find that place. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, it's the 4. I'm now going to look to the right. I'm going to say my poem, 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, let it rest. It's a 2. So I'm going to let my 4 rest. So it would round to 400,000. But they also want me to take the same number and round it to the nearest 1,000. All right, I could do this too. I'm going to rewrite the number again. And what would it round to? Okay, so if I'm doing the nearest 1,000, the first step, I'm going to find the place I'm rounding to. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. There it is. The number 1 is my target digit. I'm going to look to the right. I'm going to say my poem. 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 or less, give it a rest. It's a 9. So I'm going to increase my target digit by 1, making it a 2. Sometimes I actually like to just write it, right away. Then anything before my target digit, the 4 and the 2, are going to stay the same. And anything after my target digit is going to turn into a 0. So I need 3 zeros. So when I round to the nearest 1,000, I'm going to get 422,000. All right. You're going to need a really sharp pencil to do the work in your workbook because there's not much space. So having a really sharp pencil, or if you're using like an erasable pen, that could possibly work too for you. Whatever's most comfortable. But you want to make sure that you can write tiny. If writing tiny is hard for you, and I know that that's true for many students, you can always copy the problems onto a piece of paper if that helps. And do it that way instead. So it's telling us here in the directions, and that's really important, right? Reading the directions to round each number to the place of the underlying digit. Ooh, that's kind of nice. So we can just say that any number that is actually underlined here, any digit that's underlined, that is our target digit. That's the digit that we're going to be doing something to, right? Either adding one or letting it sleep and rest. So here we're going to round to the nearest thousand. So I'm going to look to the right. I see a 9. So that means 5 or more, add one more. I'm going to add one more to my 8, right? I can make a little arrow if I want it to there. And if I add one more to my 8, it's going to be a 9. And then I want to add my 1 and my 2 in front because those stay the same. And all those other 3 digits are going to be zeros. Let's do number 4. Here they want me to round to the nearest 10. So I'm going to draw my little Amazon arrow to the 9. 5 or more, add one more. 4 or less, give it a rest. It's a 9. So that means I'm going to add one more to my target digit, the number 3, making it a 4, right? Then everything else before the target digit just stays the same. You can actually I like to just drop it down if I can, since I'm right underneath. My comma still stays there. And anything after my target digit, the underlined digit, turns into a 0. And again, I know this is really a tiny area to write in, but we're going to do our very best. Okay, I'm just going to do a few more, and then we're going to go on to the back, and you can finish up later. So this kind of is an interesting one. Let me see if we're focused here. Because if we're rounding to the nearest thousand, I look to the right and there's a 9. So I'm going to add one more. But if I add one more to my 9, it becomes a 10. Right? So 10,000 is our rounded answer. Here's one where we're looking to the right and it's a 4. So that means we get to let that 9 rest. So it stays the same, and everything else after the target digit turns into a 0. 160,656. Look to the right, it's a 6, so we're going to round up, and that would give us 200,000. Similarly, if I also am in the 100,000s place, I look to the right, if it's a 4 or less, we're going to let that rest, and it would give us 100,000. All right, we're going to do the bottom, but I'm going to ask you to come back to that, and I'd like you to turn the page, and we're going to do a word problem together. All right, let's take a look at this one. So let's see here. Number 34, I kind of like that one. It says, write 4 numbers that round to 700,000 when rounded to the nearest 100,000. Now, there could be lots of numbers, right? So there's not any 4 correct answers here for this. Maybe we all have answers that could be counted as right. But let's see what that would be. Let's just do some samples here. So one of them, if we're rounding to the nearest 100,000, right? That's this place right here. I could have something like this. 651,000, right? Couldn't I? Because if I'm rounding it to the nearest 100,000, I would look to the right. It's a 5, so my 6 would turn into a 7. Let's see. Another one that might work. Well, what about something like this? 716,000. Right? Just an idea. Would that work? It would, because look, I would look to the right and it's a 1. So I'm going to let my 7 rest, and it would still work out to be 700,000. Go ahead, write 2 more numbers that when rounded to the nearest 100,000 would give you 700,000. I bet you can do it. All right. Let's take a look at the higher order thinking. I love these questions. Liz attended class every day since she started school as a kindergartner. Good for you, Liz. She said that she has been in school for about, I love that word, 1,000 days. What numbers could be the actual number of school days if Liz rounded to the nearest 10? Right? And they really want us to really be thinking here of all the possibilities. So if you're rounding to the nearest 10 and we're going to get 1,000 as our final answer, right? What could I have written? Could I have written 995? Let's see, if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, right, and I look to the right, yeah, that would round to 1,000, right? Even round it to the nearest 10. What about, if that's the truth, probably 996 would work, 997 would work, 998 would work, 999 would work. And now let's think, instead of going up, if we were going down, right? Like letting it rest, what about like 1,101? Would that round to 1,000 when rounded to the nearest 10? It would. Look at that. What about 1,002? What about 1,003? And finally, 1,004. So can you see how all of these numbers, when rounded to the nearest 10, would give us about 1,000? All right, guys, the rest is up to you. Right now, I would like you to pause this video. You are going to finish completing the front side of this worksheet. This is workbook page 25. And you're going to also finish the back side, workbook page 26. And then you're going to restart this video and you can check your work. So I have here the answers to those pages. Please don't just copy down the answers because that would be, it would just take the learning out of it for you. And I want to make sure that you understand this. So I'm going to put this here. Feel free to pause it. It's not very clear. I'm sorry, it's kind of tiny. Maybe you can zoom in, right? All right. And just try to correct as many as you can. It doesn't have to be the whole page. You'll notice that some of them have check marks next to them. That just means, because this is my teacher's edition, that if you get the 3 that have the check marks correct, then you have a pretty good understanding of this concept. All right, guys, that's all for now. You are going to go ahead and finish the rest of your assignment. You're going to be doing a rounding Google form. And then don't forget about your homework tonight, which is the workbook page 27 and 28. Have a great day.